give this special seminar for you dancers in our community here, so we're really excited to have her. And I'll let her tell you about what she does and her expertise in working with dancers. So we're really excited to have her. So welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for spending some of your Saturday afternoon here with me instead of whatever else it is you might have been up to. Like Karen said, we met a couple of times during our dance years, but I'll just tell you a little bit about my own story, just so you have a sense of where I'm coming from. I was in my teens. I started training more seriously, decided I really wanted to try to pursue ballet as a career. And then by the time I was 16, I was traveling with my parents an hour and a quarter in each direction to get to the best dance studio in my area of Michigan. And that just became not sustainable for my family. That might sound familiar to some of you. And so we decided that if I wanted to pursue ballet more professionally, I was going to have to move away from home. And so I ended up spending my last years of high school at North Carolina School of the Arts. And then from there, I auditioned for companies and then ended up going to the Cleveland San Jose Ballet for my first job. I was there for 3 years. And had a really interesting experience there because after my first year in the Corps de Ballet, where actually I was a trainee that first year, a number of principal women retired after that first year, and there were a lot of tall principal men that had no partners. And so because so much of life is luck as well as being ready for things, I ended up being taken under the wing of one of the tall male principals who needed a partner, and ended up doing my second 2 years like a lot of principal roles, which for someone my age and my experience was not supposed to really happen, but it was great for me, right? It was like a really great experience because then I decided to go to the Boston Ballet where I was a little fish in a very big pond, and so I was there in the Corps de Ballet for 2 years before I decided to move on to college. So one of the things that I was looking for when I decided to I left the dance world after my career. I went off and did a whole bunch of other things, lived in Europe for a long time. And when I came back to graduate school, I decided to look into what was going on for health for dancers in training. Because there were some experiences, even though I had a very positive ballet education and a very good career, a very happy career, where I had a lot of opportunities and good things happened to me, there were still some experiences that stayed with me that didn't kind of sit right with me. Things that happened to other people or me in my training, in my career, that I felt like shouldn't have really gone that way. So I was curious, like, what are people doing nowadays for dancer health in the training process? And so I wrote my master's thesis looking at all the wellness programs in America that were set up in pre-professional ballet schools. And that's how I got very interested in doing the work that I do now, which is coaching dancers one-on-one on their health and wellness that's not already through the ballet. So not the things that make you a dancer from the studio, from your traditional training, but all the other stuff. What are some of the other things that you think contribute to being a healthy and happy dancer that don't come to you through the studio? What are some of the areas that come to mind for you?
Diet.
Diet, yeah. What about that?
Not too many carbs, just enough, not too much.
So knowing
Good
what to
protein,
eat.
Better flights, recovery.
Okay, so all like what to eat before you're dancing, what to eat after you're dancing, how to stay healthy in your body in terms of what you're eating. What else comes into health and well-being?
Mental health,
Like what?
like relieving stress, getting through schoolwork without being stressed with all that too.
Okay, so you're balancing your school life with your dance life. How do you make those things fit? How do you get everything done, right? There's a lot going on that can lead to stress, and if you bring that stress into the studio, that doesn't always work out well for you, right? Okay, so managing stress, mental health, balancing your academics. Any other areas that you can think of in your life that would be important to think about and manage so that you could dance better? Yeah. Okay, say more about that.
Just like keeping good relationships with your parents, but that doesn't affect how you feel traumatized and stressed.
Yeah. things are going really well in your life, do you dance better in the studio? Yeah, right? 'Cause it's all connected, right? Okay, so these are some of the areas that I work in when I define wellness, I'm really looking at your diet and your eating, how you're taking care of your body in terms of food. I'm looking at your what I call mental fitness, which is what we're going to talk about today. I'm also looking at academics and dance, how do you balance all that. I'm interested in body image for dancers. This is a huge issue, right? Like, you don't just get to show up in the body you have and everyone's like, that's great, perfect, no problems. People in the ballet world, there's a certain aesthetic, right? People are looking for something out of you that you either have naturally or you don't, and there are areas you have to work on, there are areas you don't have to work on, so that creates a whole situation in your head around what you look like. And you get to stare at yourself in the mirror and you gain a really hard. So like that brings up a lot of stuff for people, right? I hope you appreciate the fact that I'm not having you stare at yourself in this class. That is on purpose. We'll break, right? We'll break. We don't work all the time. So those are some of the areas. I also work with dancers on performance preparation. So you prepare for performance and competition in the studio, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you have to be prepared for that has nothing to do with actually dancing, right? How do you manage all the nerves? How do you manage the competition? Not the actual dancing, but the competitive kind of feeling that comes from all the other people at the event, right? So that's something that we work on. What did I leave out there? Oh, future success. Some dancers want to go on and dance with the company. Some dancers want to go on to a college program that has dance in it. Some people are just going to dance on the side for fun, and these are all ways to continue dancing in your future and helping dancers kind of figure out, well, what's going to work for me? Like, what do I want? What's going to work? What are my options? So these are all areas of wellness that I work on when I give workshops and also when I work one-on-one with dancers. So I want to share with you, first of all, the fact that work, in my mind, really bridges the gap between the kind of physical, technical training that you get in the studio and the success, the ultimate success that you want to have in your life, either if you're on stage or you're just in your normal life. Like, there's some gaps there that aren't served necessarily and that aren't plugged by the traditional training, because traditional training is really physical, right? It's artistic and it's technical, but there's not a lot of mental training that goes into the traditional training model. Now, I'm not familiar with how you train here at Contra Costa, and maybe your teachers have given you some good mental strategies and stuff, and that would be amazing. But I'm generally talking about the culture of ballet training, which doesn't really include that as part of your training, because it's just not part of the way people teach. So I like to think that my work kind of plugs some of those gaps and helps dancers come out on the other end with like a more well-rounded, more balanced state of mind so that you can be successful. So I wanted to share with you two stories of things that stayed with me that really informed my coming to this work and then helped me decide what was important for me to talk to dancers about. The first one was when I was, first experience was when I was leaving North Carolina School of the Arts. It was graduation day of high school, and my very closest friend from the dance department, who, if any of you know, do any of you know who Cynthia Gregory is? Have you seen videos of Cynthia Gregory? I know some.
Yeah.
So really, anybody our age and up,
Yes.
Cynthia Gregory was a beautiful dancer with American Ballet Theater. In my time when I was dancing, when I was your age, she was one of my idols. She was a powerful dancer, not like a wafy, Giselle-y kind of, just like a Petrie, right? Like a powerful powerhouse of a dancer. And my best friend in the dance department at School of the Arts was like her. Like, I always thought of her like, oh, she's gonna be the next Cynthia Gregory. She just had that power and that presence. She was spectacular. She came up to me on the last day of school and she said, hey, I just want to let you know that I know I've been a little cagey with my plans, like where I'm going, where I'm dancing, is because I'm not going to dance. I'm going to Colorado, I'm going to college. And I said, what? What are you talking about? She said, I'm going to quit. I'm not going to dance anymore. And I was just like stunned, and I didn't know what to say. And she said, you know, I have bulimia. I've had bulimia before I got to the school. I have this eating disorder. I came here, my parents talked to the school, I talked to the school, we were all trying to get some kind of, you know, treatment and understanding how I can deal with this so that we can have a career. And nobody knows what to do with me. Like, nobody in the school knows how to treat me, nobody has any resources. I've been trying for 2 years. I can't go on and have a career in a field where, like, nobody knows how to deal with my eating disorder. And I was shocked by that in the moment, and then years, like, it's always stayed with me. And I was like, you know, Allison should have had resources. There should have been something for her. There should have been some way for her to heal and keep dancing, because that day, in my opinion, the ballet world lost a future artist, a beautiful, talented, powerful dancer, for really no reason, for something that we should have been ready as a field to, like, deal with, and was not. So that stayed with me. And then when I was dancing with the Cleveland Ballet, we did a nutcracker season that lasted from the day after Thanksgiving until January 6th. So we did 60 performances of Nutcracker every year, which was, you know, yay in the beginning, and then like, oh god, in the end. Very hard, very long. And we used to go out to San Jose and perform there. It was like our sister city, not far from here actually. But they have a concrete stage. So we didn't alter any of the choreography because, I don't know, you know, I was 19 and altering choreography. And it turns out that after one of our performances there, I started to have some pain in one of my shin bones. I mentioned it to my partner. He said, you know, it's probably shin splints, and so I iced. Long story short, I had that pain for many months, all the way through a summer intensive at Boston Ballet. And the day I signed my contract with Boston Ballet, I decided I should probably just go talk to the PT, just to make sure this is not something that's going to slow me down here. I, as a 21-year-old dancer who knew my body, just like you all know your bodies, knew there was something wrong, why did I just keep going? Why didn't I tell anybody? Why didn't I seek a better doctor, somebody who might have a little more information? So that story never made sense to me. Like, what about my training and myself made it so difficult for me to just be honest about what's going on with my pain levels? And so when I started doing research and looking into sports psychology and trying to understand the ballet culture better from an outsider's perspective, I was able to see the culture in a different way. Why do you think, if you can imagine yourself in that position, might I not have said anything or done anything about that kind of thing? What do you think?
You wanted to keep dancing?
Absolutely. I absolutely wanted to keep dancing. What would telling someone about it have potentially meant?
You'd have to stop.
Absolutely, right? So didn't want to stop. That was the first problem. What were you going to say?
The same thing, and also that you're possibly might not have a career with Cleveland Ballet anymore, so that would be against not dancing and stuff.
Right. I had a feeling it would negatively impact my progress, if not stop me completely. What else? Parents are free to add in. Yes.
You're making it up and being a
Oh, can you say that a little louder?
liner. You're making it up and being a liner.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, like, I'm not making any assumptions about this school, but I'm sure if you've gone away to schools, you know, there are teachers that are like, come on, there's nothing wrong with you, right? Just keep going. Just come on, you're fine. You're too weak to make it in the ballet world. That was in my head all the time. If I say something about it, someone's going to think there's something, oh, well, she can't cut it. She's got a little pain in the bone. You know. Meanwhile, my bone is like slowly cracking and opening in my body, right? So I had all these ideas that I didn't make up, but that were in the culture around me that created messages for me that made it hard for me to say what was really going on. So anyway, I share those stories with you to say that for me, from my perspective today, you know, it's important that you all have an understanding of what your voices are and what it's important for you to be able to talk about what's going on with you whether you're looking for resources for body pain or body image issues, right? It has to be okay for you to talk about those things and seek help and have resources. Otherwise, the outcomes, I was in the boot for 4 months and in rehab for 4 months. So the entire first year of mine here in Boston, I didn't dance at all. I danced in the final production in May, and my contract started in September. So if I had said something, presumably, I would have caught it early enough, had a very short time of being injured and actually been able to dance. So in the end, I lost out because of my fears. And if my friend had resources at School of the Arts, which incidentally they have now, because a lot of time's passed since then, she could have had a career. And that could have changed all kinds of things in her life and the people around her. So that's what brings me to the work. That's why I'm excited about it, because I think that there's so much that is out there for you to learn and know about so that you can be happy and healthy. Okay. Preamble. All right, so today we're talking about, the title of the talk today is Building a Better Dancer. And I'm going to share with you some strategies around being successful in your mind so that you can be a better dancer. So when I say better dancer, I'm not talking about doing more pirouettes, or jumping higher, or having better variations, although those can all be outcomes of what it is that I'm thinking about. What do you think I might be thinking about in terms of qualities when I say a better dancer? If it's not turning better and jumping better, balancing better, what's better? What do you think?
Longevity.
Okay.
And being able to dance healthy longer.
Okay.
So, cross training properly so that you're supporting the taxes that you're putting your body through in here.
Right. Taking better care of yourself, better self-care. Yeah, and knowing what that means so that you can have a longer career. Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other ideas? It's okay if you don't, because we're going to talk about it.
Well, I know when I felt happy and secure with myself, I was much more open to hearing criticism or corrections, that sort of thing. If I was feeling very insecure and down on myself, I probably wasn't quite as open to that sort of thing, or I might just get frustrated with myself and end in the same result of not really moving forward and improving.
Right. So being able to manage your own emotional and mental state so that you can receive what's coming towards you in a way that's productive, right? And also being resilient. What does it mean to be mentally resilient? You know what it means to be physically resilient because you do it every day, right, in class. Maybe you're a little tired, but you push through. Maybe you have like small pain, good pain, but you don't like stop because you're like, oh, that's good pain. But what does it mean to be mentally resilient? I mean, Sherry sort of said that, right? Like you can come back, right? Sorry, were you going to say something?
Having the tools in your toolbox to know how to get through what life throws at you.
Absolutely, right? And in the studio, a lot of stuff comes at you, right? So you can't collapse and cry or get frustrated whenever something doesn't work out because, last time I did a ballet class, it was pretty hard. Like, ballet is not easy, right? It's not easy. It's not like, oh, this will be fine. Just go do this and you'll be great. Like, it's hard. So you have to be able to bounce back from the things that you find very frustrating or from the things that aren't working. Otherwise, you're going to get into a headspace where, like your teacher was saying, it's very difficult to receive information in terms of corrections or criticism, but then it's also difficult to deal with your own stuff so that you can dance better. So these are the kinds of qualities that we're looking for when I say better dancer. Mentally resilient, emotionally resilient, you have tools to manage whatever it is that's coming up for you in the studio. You're not just walking in every day and saying, well, I hope this goes well. And then when something goes badly, it is not going well. I'm having a horrible class. And that's it, right? I mean, I did that a lot. I just have days where I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be a great class. It's a horrible class. And that was it. And that could be happening at plies. And it's like, oh, well, I mean, you can't, right? You just can't, because you're going to stand here for an hour and a half. You're going to do the whole class. You can't do the whole class in that state of mind, right? Well, you can, but it's kind of a loss, right? You've all done it, right? You have a great class until you Oh, well. And your teachers can see it, they're like, oh, she disappeared. She's here, but she's gone, right? She's just disappeared. And you're probably in your head having either, you know, a bad, like, critical talk, like, I'm just awful, I'm never gonna make it, this is a waste of time. Or you're angry, right? Depends on your personality. Come on, why can't you pull it together, right? And in the meantime, it's like, but class is happening, that you should be learning, and you should be focusing, and instead you've gone inside and you're having a whole thing, right? So I just totally lost my train of thought. But where was I?
Resilient.
Resilience, thank you. Resilient. Not a good example of resilience. But yeah, having those tools, right? Having those tools so that you come into class and you have focus and you have a sense of what you're there for, and if something goes wrong, okay, that wasn't the best combination, next, right? You can move on. Because in the end, that's what you need so that you can have the kinds of results that you want. Okay, the other thing about building a better dancer is that in order for you to receive some of the tools that I'm going to share with you today, and hopefully you will get excited about and interested in and start trying, is that it helps to have a slight shift in the way that you think about yourself as a dancer. So what I mean by that is there's kind of a traditional mindset, especially for ballet dancers, and then there's this, what I call the better dancer mindset, which I sort of created, which I'm going to share with you right now. So because of the culture of the ballet studio, which is quite similar to other endeavors to certain sports, the way that the dynamic is set up is that you have a kind of pyramid, right? When you're in the dance studio. Who's at the top of the pyramid in your dance class?
It's your favorite.
Depending on who it is, right? Who's that person at the top? Your teacher, right? Why is the teacher at the top?
They tell you what to do and how to do it.
They tell you what to do and how to do it. They got the knowledge, right? They got the know-how, they have the eyes that see what's going wrong. They can help you, right? With corrections. Where are you guys?
At the bottom.
In the bottom, right between the elbows here, okay? It's not like oh, this is better and this is worse. It's just that is the structure, right? And so what that creates in dancers often is a sense of being, you're waiting, right? They come in with all the knowledge, the combinations, the corrections, and you come in with, you know, a good work ethic and excitement to be here and motivation, but you're also like, I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do, right? And there's that sense of being passive, right? Being a passive recipient of combinations, corrections, whatever, right? And that's not a bad thing. It just is. It's part of the way that the education is structured. But it does create a sense of kind of hanging back and waiting. How many of you have come into class and you're doing a combination and it's not working? And you don't know why it's working. Has anyone had this experience? Maybe you're doing pirouettes and you keep falling, but you don't know why you're falling. Okay, you've had that experience? Okay, good. So, I have it all the time. How many of you are have ever had the experience where you're like, I wish someone would teacher, you just look at this, I don't have wished that you were going to get a correction about that so that you could fix it? Yeah? How many of you work on it on your own? Figure it out. Don't expect any feedback. Sometimes, right? So what I'm going to try to ask you to do is imagine that you shift over into this kind of, again, better dancer mentality, which is not passive recipient, but active participant, right? Active agent in your training, which means you're collaborating. You think of yourself more as a collaborator than just a hang out and wait for someone to tell me what to do. What does that mean in practice? It means a couple of things. So it means, from the example I just gave you, trying to imagine that you have some answers in your own understanding of your body to help you solve some of your own problems, right? Of course you need the teacher. Of course they know more than you. They're all back there, right? They know more than you, they've been doing it longer, right? But it doesn't mean that you know nothing. It doesn't mean that you just wait around, right? It means that you try to solve some of your own problems because you have an understanding and integrity within yourself of how your body works. So that's one shift. Passive recipient kind of hopes for attention to tell her or him what's going on. Please correct me, please watch me, tell me what's going on. Active participant is, okay, I think I can figure this out. If I keep falling this way, I'm going to try to fall the other way. Once I fall the other way, I'm going to try and get more in the middle. Whatever, right? But I've got some information here in my own body that can help me. The kind of traditional mindset around the ballet body has been what? What's the way that most people think about their dancing body as a ballet in terms of the facility that you have? Gotta have the feet, gotta have the legs, hyperextension is a thing now, didn't used to be a thing, now it's a thing. Right, super flexibility didn't used to be a thing, now it's a thing. Do you need all that stuff to be a great dancer? Traditional mindset? Yeah, absolutely. How many times have I spent, not recently, thank God, but in my career, looking in the mirror thinking, if I just had 6 more degrees of rotation in that left hip, I'd be so much better. If I just had her feet, I'd probably be a principal by now. If I could turn like her, right, thinking, right, if I could just have that, or if I could just have that, right, then everything would be better. And I've coached dancers who said, well, if I could just lose 15 pounds, I would be amazing. Like, really, that's it? Just lose weight and become amazing? I mean, that might be true for some things in life if all that matters is what you look like, but in ballet you actually be able to do a lot of things, right? So of course your body, being your instrument, is extremely important, but is it? Is that all we're talking about? To be a good dancer? What you look like? No. So better dancer mentality is what? Well, how do you want to think about your body, your facility, in a better dancer mentality? What do you think?
How would you use your body? So even if you don't have hyperextension, how would you use your legs to
How you use your body, right? What are you doing with it, right? What's going on? And that's easy to say out loud here, but it's another thing to internalize that and use it in class so that you don't get fixated on like that one thing I don't like about my body. Okay, what's the rest of my body doing for me? Right? How can I improve my overall technique? And so I'm not stuck in self-criticism about the 1 or 2 things that could be better, right? Another example, I'll give you the last example, the kind of, which some of you may have observed, dancers who are having difficulty with something, things aren't going well, get very frustrated, cry. I was a crier in my training, I like to cry every time I could get something. It just felt like the right thing. I have to show that I care. Better dancer mentality, be more strategic. Think about being a problem solver, right? Not attaching emotions to not being able to do something, right? How many of you have had a bad combination or a bad audition, and then your immediate thought is like, I'm never going to be a dancer. I'm not good enough. I can't. It's just a combination. It was a bad day, right? Rather than going immediately to the dramatic, right? I can't, I'm not good enough, I never will. Thinking more in the terms of a problem-solving idea, right? Like, okay, that didn't go well, what can I do better next time? I was really overtaken by nerves in that audition, I really wasn't in my body, what do I do next time? How do I prepare for that? And that involves stepping back a little bit, rather than letting your emotions take complete control of you, and lead the direction, right? Saying, okay, that wasn't my best, so that's okay, I can step back. And I can kind of see, oh yeah, you know what? I didn't eat breakfast that day. No wonder I felt shaky. I went to bed too late the night before, right? Really thinking strategically about ways to make yourself, set yourself up for success. Okay, so those are just some examples of moving from a kind of maybe traditional or, just traditional mindset into a kind of better dancer mindset that can once you kind of make that shift and think of yourself as being more active and having more ownership of the process of being a dancer, you can kind of make more choices about what's going to work for you. And that's going to help you when you start thinking about tools like the ones that I'm going to share with you today. So what I'm going to share with you, I told you all those areas that I work on. Obviously, we would be here until 6 tonight if I shared all the different areas, which I mean, I know it's like there's nothing to do today, but I don't think I want to stay here till 6. So I'm going to share one tool with you, one area that I work on and a couple of tools in that area. And the area is going to be mental fitness, because that's an area that dancers love and that's really fun and that I like teaching. What do you think mental fitness is? Have you ever heard of that term? And what do you think it is?
I think it's having balance. Balance?
What kind of balance?
Balance between your work and something outside of balance between giving yourself a break and pushing hard.
Okay. Having your mind be has a balance thing. Okay. Yeah. What else? Let's break it down like even more simple than that, right? What is fitness?
Working on how strong you are.
Okay, so fitness is about how fit you are, right? And usually we talk about physical fitness, right? How strong is your body? How fit is your body? So what would mental fitness be? How fit your mind is, right? Kind of odd topic, but really fascinating. And it ties into what we were talking about already in terms of being a better dancer. So that's our topic for today. Let's go ahead and start with a little pop quiz, because that's a good way to start any talk. In sports psychology, what is the #1 reason why people underperform when they are on stage? Is it A, because they are underprepared, under-rehearsed, not ready? B, because there's some kind of accident that happens, some kind of freak thing? Or C, because they have a mental distraction? What do you think?
C.
Mental distraction? All right, who raises their hand for mental distraction? Okay, who raises their hand for some kind of strange happening that makes them lose their focus? Okay, and how many people for underpreparedness? Oh, everybody's unanimous. Okay, 1 underpreparedness. Okay, in most cases, it's a mental distraction. There's some kind of thing that's happened in someone's mind that has caused a disconnect. Now, if you think about it, that's amazing, right? That you could be ready 100% to get out there on stage and do your part, and everything is ready. Your body is warm, you know the choreography, you're well rehearsed. Would you believe me if I said, well, unless you prepare your mind, there's a 95% chance you're going to have a problem on stage? And you're like, what are you talking about? I am ready for this. But if you were to be distracted mentally, that could be it, right? Why is that true? Because there's a very strong connection between what you're thinking about and what your body's going to do, right? And if you don't address that connection, then you could be distracted. So let's have a little, we're going to do a teeny tiny lecture demonstration to show you what I'm talking about. Can I have 2 dancers come up who are about the same size? 2 volunteers who are about the same size. Don't all jump up at once. I promise you it's not hard. You don't have to be warm or anything. I'm not going to make you sweating. Okay, so you're going to stand one in front of the other. Can you stand in front of her? Yeah, I think that's about right. Well, look at you in the first position. Okay, so you're going to put your arms down like this. You're going to put your hands on her arm. Sorry, my hands are super cold. You're going to put your hands on her arm. And you're going to try and lift your arms with all your power. And you're going to try and push down on her arms with all your power. Wait, I'm going to whisper something in your ear, okay? I want you to think about. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Rest. That's really hard. Okay, we're gonna do it again, and I'm gonna tell you something else. Okay, go ahead. Okay, stop. you observed between the first time and the second time?
She seems stronger the first time.
Stronger the first time. Okay, anything else? She seems stronger.
Control.
More control the first time? Okay. Anything else different?
More focus.
More focus? Okay. How did you see that?
With her eyes.
Okay.
Her eyes were
Where was she looking the second time? Did you notice?
like all over, kind of.
Okay. Did you notice that too?
Yeah, her eyes are shifting.
The second time they were shifty, huh? Second time shifty. Any other observations that no one said? Okay, what was the difference between the first time and the second time? Only you know.
I don't know, it's just like different. Like,
What did I tell you in your ear?
the first time you told me that I could do it, and I felt more confident about it. And the second time you told me to tell myself that I couldn't. And it was just like, I said it over and over again, like you kind of said to believe it.
Do you have we talked about this exercise before today? Okay, do you know me personally? Am I passing you a little money? Thinking. Okay. So my question for you is, what's your name?
Jensen?
Jensen? Jensen and I do not know each other, not giving her any bribes to do this experiment, right? And she listened to what I said it to herself, and it immediately impacted her ability to lift her arms. What's your name?
Devin.
Devin and Jensen. Okay, did you notice a difference?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you notice?
The first time she was like really pushing against me and it was hard to keep them down and
Mhm.
eventually. But the second time I lasted longer keeping them closer to her body than the first time.
So you felt the difference in her determination. Okay. Why does that work? She doesn't know me. Why should she listen to me? Who cares what I say? Just because I'm from New York City, that doesn't who cares, right? Why did it make a difference? In her ability not to do 32 fouettes, not to do the Black Swan variation, not to come out here and do an incredible contemporary, to do this. Okay? Y'all can do this, right? Not hard. Why did it matter that what I told her, why did it impact what she was up to?
She got convinced.
She got convinced, planted the seed of a doubt, and that was enough. Okay? So there's a couple reasons why I love this experiment. Because it's not hard in the sense of what you do every day is hard, right? Because it's something so simple, and yet by planting a little doubt in her mind, that was enough to make it hard for her, right? So the first thing I want you to take away from that is, if you think that what you think does not impact what your body is doing, you got some work to do, okay? You got some tuning in to do during class to start paying attention to, is my mind connected to my body? Am I really paying attention to what I'm saying to myself? So, if mental distraction is the reason that most performers underperform, it's because there's something up here that isn't working right. And by the way, this is all completely normal. There's nothing weird about this. Everybody has a running monologue in their head about the things that are going wrong. It's part of being human, right? It's a survival mechanism. Don't do the stuff that doesn't work. Try to do the stuff that does work, right? So it's normal. But when you're trying to pursue something as complicated and as technically kind of fidgety and as ballet, you kind of have to make sure that your head is along with the game. Otherwise, it doesn't work as well. The other thing is that I planted the seed, and she listened and she internalized that. That has power. So what your teachers say to you, you internalize it, it has power. What if, on her own, she has decided that she can't do something? What do you think has more power, my voice in her ear, or her deciding, her voice saying that she can't do something?
Her voice.
Her voice has even more power, right? So if you feel like, oh, I can filter out my teachers, if they say something negative to me, it's cool, I can turn it around. Great, you're halfway there. But you are going to have a difficult time not listening to yourself, right? Because we all think that we know what we're talking about, right? If I tell you something and you're like, she doesn't know what she's talking about, you believe yourself, and you totally think you're right, then why shouldn't you? But if what you're saying to yourself is, there's no way I can do this combination, I'm not a jumper, I'm not a jumper. So by the time you get to jumps, everybody's jumping, and your teacher's like, come on, you're like, all right, but you're thinking, I'm not a jumper. Body listens to brain, we don't jump, okay. I'm not a jumper.
Would it be better to say I'm not a good jumper yet, but I'm training hard for it?
Absolutely.
So that's another mindset.
Absolutely.
Maybe you recommend to this dancer to a performance statement saying, okay, I'm gonna perform really well today because I've been practicing
We're good.
the skills and subconscious.
Yes, absolutely. So the messages that you feed yourself are important, right? If you feed yourself the I'm not a turner, I'm not a jumper, I'm not a this, I'm not a that, I can't, your body listens, right? So the question is, what do you feed to it instead, right? What do you say to it instead? What do you say to yourself? So the first thing I want to share with you is a tool. It's called the intentional thought patterns. It goes from unintentional to intentional. I will get out of the way so you can see this in a minute. Thought patterning. In this exercise that we just did, I planted a thought in Jensen's mind, and the thought was, I can or I can't. When I said that you could do it, what was your feeling about that?
I thought that I could, yeah.
Yeah, and so you felt
Confident.
where did your action come from? What kind of an action did you take in your body?
Like physically, or just tried to lift my arms and fight through what she was doing.
Right, more determined, more energy, more like feeling capable, and then what kind of a result did you have?
It worked better.
It worked better, right? You were able to lift your arms. Whereas as soon as you thought, I can't, there was a feeling of,
Not being able to do it.
okay, an action which was a bit,
Yeah.
people observed your eyes kind of shifting around, like a kind of a sense of not being able to, you felt it in her body, and then the result was that you weren't able to, right? So the idea behind the intentional and unintentional is that unintentional thought pattern is something that you're in a circumstance and you have a thought, right? It just comes to you, whatever the thought is, that's unintentional. And then that creates a feeling, which then creates an action, and then you get a result out of that. Unintentional, again, just kind of, I say, let's get up and do the black swan variation. And you're like, you haven't thought about that. Probably not a good one at this point because you're in your sneakers and hanging out, right? And then that's going to produce a feeling about it that isn't going to be so hot, and then you're not really going to be able to have a good result. Moving it to intentional means recognizing that this is a thought which isn't going to work for you, not workable, and trying to think of a different thought. This is where you have your power, is in the thought. The circumstance in the studio, you don't get to control the circumstances in the studio, hardly ever, right? Because someone else is teaching the class, someone else is giving the corrections, someone else is creating combinations. That's fine. It's what you think about it that matters, right? That's what matters. So if the circumstance is one that kind of triggers in you sensations of not being able to do something, or negativity, or fear, then you just have to think about it in a different way. So, for example, let's imagine that you are in an audition class. Actually, let's just close your eyes, all the dancers especially. Close your eyes. You're in an audition class for a summer intensive. This is the one you want. And the artistic director of the program calls you forward. Number 24, come forward please, and demonstrate that combination for everybody to the music. What would be your first unintentional thought? Can someone share your first unintentional thought about how you demonstrate the combination? Yes. Oh no, I didn't mess it up. Okay, anything else? Any other unintentional thoughts?
Well, I can't afford to fail this.
Oh, no pressure. I can't afford to fail. I don't know it that well. Okay. What kind of a sensation do you get what kind of a feeling do you get when you think, I can't afford to fail?
If I do fail, everything's gonna come down.
Okay, so how does that make you feel?
Scared.
Okay, and then how do you think you're gonna come to the middle of the room and dance that combination?
Probably just take a deep breath and see if you can do it.
Okay.
Try your best.
Okay, if you don't do that, if you don't take a breath, what do you think is gonna happen in your body?
You're probably gonna start shaking and then everything's just gonna go out of control.
Result is gonna be a bit not so awesome. Did anybody have a thought that wasn't in this vein? Did anybody have
Well, I kind of like going first in class, so like kind of was like, I didn't really want to do it, but also I wasn't like terrified of the idea of doing it in front of everyone.
Can you give me a one-line thought? Just for,
Okay.
okay, all right. A little more positive than me. I hope I don't mess this up. Did anybody have a yay? Awesome. Yeah?
Well, just thinking that if, especially if your project's been going very well and you feel good about yourself, you might go, well, this isn't a go out and
Okay, you notice
play.
Yay, he noticed me, right? Yes, I will come to the middle of the room and demonstrate the combination. That's got to be a good thing, right? How would you feel if that was your thought? He noticed me.
Yeah, I got in.
Okay, I got it in. Fantastic. How are you going to walk to the front of the room?
Confidence.
Confident. What's your result likely to be?
Beautiful.
Right? Okay, that's the idea, okay? The idea is that, as you suggested, when you're in a circumstance that the initial thought or feeling is like a kind of scared, not confident, insecure, whatever, you know, because of this, if you didn't know it before, you know that that's not workable. It's not going to help you. Okay, it doesn't mean you're going to do a horrible job, but it doesn't mean you're going to do a great job. Probably not your best work in that frame of mind. So you really want to be able to switch the thought, right? Because this is where your power is. You can think about it differently, you will feel differently about it, and that will lift you up to a higher level of mental fitness, which allows you to do better work in your body. And if you don't believe me, please try it. Please try it.
I have a comment that
Sure.
I don't dance, so
That's okay, you don't need to. That's what's
what do
wrong.
you think about mental rehearsal and visualization? I mean, if you're injured, because you've been injured, I was going to ask you that for 4 months. It's not like you're not dancing there, but you must have been somewhere in here, right?
I didn't know about any of this stuff when I was dancing. I learned about it all many years later. I love mental rehearsal. Mental rehearsal is a tool where even though you're not physically in the studio dancing, you can you can lie down in bed and close your eyes and do a class or do a rehearsal of a variation in your mind. It's the best way to do it is a kind of multi-sensorial. So you imagine what you're wearing, what point shoes you have on, or what tights you have on, the music, the smell of the studio, the lights, everything. You imagine yourself going through that variation or steps or whatever. And what it does is that the same parts of your brain that light up, they've done studies of this, that light up when you're in the studio doing it, also light up when you're lying in bed imagining yourself doing it. So the part of your brain that gets stimulated and creates messages that go to your muscles is activated. Dancers who are injured use this tool a lot to keep the muscle memory alive, to keep the brain messages of like, this is an atmosphere that I am comfortable in, I can do this kind of stuff alive, right? Very powerful tool. And a lot of Olympic athletes too, when they get injured, will do months of mental rehearsal leading up to like a trial event or something. And it just keeps the connections alive between your brain and your body. Very, very powerful tool.
So I was in gymnastics, and while we were training really heavy at the competition season, at the end of class, we would all find a spot, lie down, and our coach, they'd turn off the lights, and the coach would actually walk us through that very step of what you're saying. Getting the room, the feel of where you're at, who's around you, the energy in the room, and then you go in and you do that balance beam routine, and you know you're doing it to perfection.
Yeah.
So
And when you mentally rehearse, you always rehearse the way you want to do it.
yeah.
Right? You don't do it. And what I love about mental rehearsal is that if you fall off your balance beam in your mental rehearsal, you just go and get back on and do it again, right? Because you're programming your brain. You can think about your brain like a little computer, which it is a supercomputer, right? You're programming your brain to have a result that you want. And when you do it over and over again in your head, as long as you are continuing to train as well, right? They work in tandem, then your body is much more likely to get closer and closer to that result because your brain is already extremely comfortable with having a good result.
Yeah, just along those lines, there was a girl that I was really nervous about. I would find that when I would try and go through it the night before, my nerves would even take place there. And I made it just a practice, like if I even started to imagine myself messing up or my fears taking over, I'd stop, start over again. You know, and I was constantly, it was like working my mind, rehearsing my mind into envisioning it the right way. And I had to practice it mentally just as well as physically.
Yeah. I have an injured dancer. She's not injured. She got surgery to remove an extra bone in her foot. A lot of those going around these days. And she was getting really kind of frustrated. You know, the recovery process is about 10 weeks, I think, from kind of severe surgery to like full out dancing again. Just somewhere in the middle. She was getting kind of antsy. She was still, had the boot on or whatever. So I started having her do class in her head. And she said two things to me that I thought was amazing. I mean, I wasn't surprised because I kind of knew that this would happen, but you might find it amazing. The first one is she said, mental class is exhausting. I am worn out, I'm lying in my bed. I can't do any more class. And I was laughing, like, I know, right? Because it is hard to imagine yourself doing that, and because everything's firing, all the neurons are firing, your muscles are getting into it. And she said, I actually feel physically different. I feel physically different from doing a mental class. She isn't done, she's just lying in bed. But the way that her brain is working and the way that the connections are going on between the body, she felt better. She was like, I'm starting to not feel like, you start to feel a bit, not getting class, a little bit achy, feel a bit this. I'm actually starting to feel better in my body. This is all just to say, very powerful stuff, right? Very powerful stuff. So, yeah, that's why I love them. It's so powerful. I wish I'd known about it when I was dancing. I would have been amazing. Anyway, thought patterning, very, very powerful tool. Not so good for in the moment. In that audition, when that director calls you forward, you cannot say, I would love to demonstrate this combination, but I need 3 minutes with my journal because I just gotta go fix my thought pattern. I'm not quite ready. You have to just go, right? What do you do in that moment if your thought is I'm going to mess up, I can't, oh my God, right? You don't have time to go sort it out. You have to sort it out in an exercise which is called thought stopping, where basically whatever your moment, if it's not a positive, workable thought, you intercept that thought. Because contrary to popular belief, you can actually only think one thing at a time. We think that we're thinking millions of things all at once. Right? But actually our brains, in 1 nanosecond, you have one thought and that's it. So if you have a thought stream, which is not good, you can interrupt it by just saying, stop. And in that moment, it's stopped. And once you've intercepted it, you can reframe it. Okay? So if you thought in that moment, oh no, not me, and you said stop, how could you reframe it in a way that might be more workable? What do you think? I know, I'm going to put this spot. What do you think? What do you think would be better for you? You can do it. I can do it. I can do it, right? Have you done free labor before? Yeah. Okay, so good luck. I can do it, right? So stop. I can do it. What else could you say to yourself? What's another workable idea that might work for you after you say stop? How would you reframe it in that moment? In the audition? Example.
Like say something positive.
What would work for you?
Like it's gonna go well.
It's gonna go well. Yeah, it's gonna go well. When you think about reframing, and we're talking about it now, and I want you to think about it in your future so that in the moment you have a thought-stopping word, which can be stop, it can be no, anything, right? It's important to tap into what I like to call your sassy self, which just means that sometimes when you're in a negative thought cycle or in an unworkable way of thinking about yourself, we get to be a little bit like, oh, I can't, oh, poor me. And it's important to kind of tap into your, like your sassy self, like, come on, yes you can, right? That voice in your head, everybody has a voice in their head that's a little bit more, you know what I'm talking about? A little bit more like, yes, right? You gotta tap into that because it's gotta be you telling your fears that, no, thanks for the fear, not interested, it's supposed to come out in really formal right now. Okay, you want to tap into whatever that sounds like for you. So just to give you some examples, I have a dancer who doesn't like stop, that's not what she wanted to say. She has in her voice, in her head rather, she just says like, no thanks, not interested. Anytime she has negativity or, the circumstances around her feel like they're getting a little bit too negative for her, she just imagines herself being like, no thanks. And that's how she interrupts it. I have another dancer who just says, later, dude. That's his thing. He's like, later, dude. I got time for this right now. Take off. So you can think about what could stop your fears or negativity. And then the reframe can be whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be, I'm an amazing dancer. I can't wait to demonstrate this combination. If that feels to you like, then don't think that, right? But don't reframe to a statement that you feel feels fake or silly because your brain is too smart for that. That's not going to work. So if you think that you actually could do it well, you can reframe with, it will go well. This is fine. Or if you think that I can do this, works for you, then that's what you reframe, right? So it takes a little bit of work right now on the back end to think about what you could say, what the stopping word is and what the reframe is. But once you have it, just use it regularly. Use it in class. Anytime you are in a kind of place where you're feeling a little insecure, use it, and then you'll know right away if it works for you. And once you have that, that's an in-the-moment tool you can use anytime. In the middle of a combination, when things start to go a little south, you can interrupt that feeling that you're having or those thoughts that you're having and turn them around really quickly. Any questions about that one? Okay. We're going to take a little breathing pause for a moment, just to tell you about the little sheet I gave you. So on this little sheet, I'm going to offer you two things. The first is that every 2 weeks I send out a newsletter over email that contains, usually each newsletter is one tip, whether it's a thought tool or a preparation tool for auditions or some kind of dietary recommendation. So if you would like to receive that in your email, just write down your email very legibly for me, please, and first and last name so that I can put you on my list. Two tools so far, the unintentional to intentional thought patterning tool, and then a thought stoppage for kind of in the moment, how do you get into a better place. So the next tool is about building a kind of safe space around you. So I'm going to share a little story with you about one of the dancers that came to me for coaching. She was getting ready, she came to me in like October, she was coming off an injury, she had spent the previous summer at SAB, she was auditioning in the winter to go again for another summer. But in the interim, she'd had an injury. And when she came back from the injury, she felt, as a lot of dancers do come back from injuries, that she wasn't progressing fast enough. And she was afraid that at the audition, the panel would be looking at her thinking, what happened to her? She looked great last summer, and now she's, I don't know, she doesn't look very good. This was like her constant thought. And so when she would come into the class, she felt like her teachers were worried about her, they weren't, but she thought her teachers were worried about her progress. She thought that her peers were looking at her, worrying about, like, wondering why she didn't look very good. It became a very kind of shifty emotional situation for her in the studio, even though it wasn't. She had created this herself in her mind. And so she said, I'm having trouble going to the studio and working really well because I just feel so, like, I feel like I'm not fast enough, I'm not strong enough, I should be faster and stronger, and everybody's looking at me. So we did a lot of thought work that I'm sharing with you today, and got her into a good mental space, and then she would go to the studio and it would all just disappear. So what we ended up doing was creating this idea of a safe space, a safe zone for her to dance in. And this is actually a very, it's more in sports psychology, you talk about it as like being in the zone, like getting in your headspace where you perform best. So there are 3 tools that you can think about, and they're all metaphorical tools. So for her, the idea that she liked was that she had a metaphorical set of parentheses, you know about parentheses, right, from writing, around the studio. And when she would walk in the studio door, she would walk through one set of parentheses, and she would say to herself in her mind, this is my time to work on my dancing. It's not about my peers, it's not about my teachers, it's not about pressure for the audition, it's my time to work on myself. And then she would do her dancing and have her day, and when she left the studio, she said she would imagine sort of the parentheses would close behind her. And so whatever had happened in the studio, whether it was a good class or not so good class, she would leave it in the studio and get in the car with her mom, and then just go off and have the rest of her day. And not really let the things that had happened in the studio stay and kind of ruminate over them and think about them all the time. It was like, that's that, and now I have to go home and do my academics and whatever. It became a very powerful tool for her to separate a little bit ballet life, studio life, and everything else, but also to take the pressure off in terms of everybody else's input and feedback to her. Another tool outside of parentheses, something different, is the bubble. And a lot of my dancers who do competitions like this idea, that they do the thought work before they get to the competition site. So they've done the mental rehearsal, they've done the thought preparation, they're in the zone, and then they get into the theater where everyone's competing, and everyone's like, and they're watching other people, and oh God, and they just get freaked out, right? They're so nervous, and so suddenly feel a lot of pressure. So instead, before they get out of the car, they imagine that they're getting in this bubble, this beautiful bubble. The dancers I work with have created all kinds of bubbles. We've got bubbles with glitter, we've got force fields. I have a dancer with a force field that he steps into this force field. He's like, and I know I'm in the theater and people are talking to me, and I'm like, yeah, super nervous, yeah. It's like nothing. It's like they can't touch me with their nerves and their problems. Like, I'm good. I've done my work, I'm ready, I'm warm, I'm rehearsed, I'm mentally like in the zone. So he just imagines that this like, it's like people are coming at him like, they're just kind of like boomeranging right off of him. And it might sound really like a crazy idea, but if you practice it, the idea is to keep what you've worked on close to you and positive and constructive, and the other stuff just can't get in. And you create a time period for this, right? And it can be very powerful. The other one I love is, the only time I've ever heard about this was a singer at the Metropolitan Opera. This is called An Emotional Safe Space. This makes sense because, if you're an opera singer, you're, dramatic. She stands in the wings, and she's done all this, again, of course, preparation work. And before she steps out, she goes like this, and she imagines that she throws a ring of fire on herself. And she walks out onto the stage, she's like in this ring of fire. And she said, anything can happen. A light falls down, a guy in the front seat's like having a coughing fit. She's like, doesn't matter. Like, I am in the zone. I am in my space. You cannot distract me. I have worked too hard for this. And that's where she is. And it gives her just a sense of, I mean, can you imagine walking around with a ring of fire around you? You would feel pretty powerful, right? Like, just try, right? Try to come in here. Like, so again, these are just ideas, right? But they're ideas that kind of set you up for feeling empowered and successful, and like you can do what it is you've come to do, whether you're at an audition or a performance or just coming to class, right? That you're ready for that stuff. There's some things for you to try, especially if you feel like you're in a good spot and then you're very much influenced by people around you, right? Like if all your friends are sort of down or upset or whatever, you suddenly feel like, oh yeah, that's me too, right? You let that in and that kind of brings you down. Or if you're at a summer program where you have a really mean teacher or something, right? Like, and you let that really get to you, you can think about using some of these ideas. Okay, I don't need that to influence me. I'm fine with where I am and how I'm doing, right? I'm going to take the corrections because I need the corrections, but I'm not going to take all that other stuff that goes with it, right? That emotional stuff, the things that aren't working for me.
So say no to negative imprinting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Don't have time.
The movement does, right? It gets in the way, right? It gets in the way. And I know it might sound crazy that like I'm saying that those things don't have to influence you and don't have to touch you, and you might think like, how is that possible? It's possible, trust me. It is. You just have to work on it. It's not easy. It's not like you just decide one day, oh, I'm not going to let your negativity touch me, and then that's it, right? You have to think about it and work on it. And what I like to say is that all these tools are just like your plies and your tendus. Like if you work on them, they will get better, and it will get easier. But if you don't take class for a month and then you walk in and expect to do everything the way you did it a month ago, it doesn't, as you know, it doesn't work that way, right? Your body's like, I don't think so. You haven't done this in a while, and your brain's the same way. So you really want to think about, where can I integrate these tools into my daily training? How can I make them work for me all the time? And then as you use them and work on them, part of how you think about yourself as a dancer. It just gets easier and easier. Okay, any questions about that one? Okay, last thing I'm going to share with you is a breathing exercise. So I'm going to have everybody put down your pens and your pencils and just sit up nice and straight. And you're going to either close your eyes or you're going to direct your gaze down your nose to the floor. And when you're doing any kind of mindful or meditative breathing, you want to make sure that you don't leave your eyes up and looking around, because as soon as your eyes see things, your brain is stimulated to start engaging with those things. So you want to look down at the floor or close your eyes completely. And what I'm going to have you do is just breathe naturally for 60 seconds. I'm going to time you. And I want you to tune in to what's going on in your mind, your mental landscape, your mental noise, your thoughts. Just breathe naturally for 1 minute and tune into your mental noise. With your eyes still closed, I want you to imagine that you have to rate your mental noise on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is so quiet, nothing is going on. And when someone scores a touchdown, there's a lot happening. Go ahead and write down on your piece of paper in front of you where you are on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of your mental noise. I'm not collecting it, right? Just so you can see the number in a minute. Okay. We're going to do that again, but I'm going to talk you through a breathing exercise. This 3x5 breathing exercise is a really standard breathing exercise. You're going to focus on 3 areas. You're going to take 5 breaths. And 1 breath is considered an inhale, and an exhale is 1. Okay? So everybody sit up straight again, put down your notebooks and stuff. Close your eyes or direct your gaze towards the floor. You're going to close your mouth, so you do all your breathing through your nose, unless you have a cold or something else is going on there. You can't breathe through your nose. And you're just gonna do some deep inhales and exhales through your nose, just naturally, for a second while you get situated. Now on your next inhale, you're gonna draw your attention to your nostrils. As you come to your fifth breath, you want to move your focus to your belly. Notice how when you inhale, your belly inflates like a little balloon. And as you exhale, it naturally deflates. Just notice how that happens as you inhale and exhale 5 times. Possibly extending your breaths just a little bit. And as you come to the end of your last breath, you can tune in to your mental noise again. And notice if you're having more or less than you did before, and just write down the new number next to the old number. More mental noise, higher levels of mental noise. Nobody. It's always like one outlier. They're like, oh! Did everybody else have less?
Yeah.
So what degree of, what did you go from, a what to a what?
I went from like a 3.5, which was like, to like a 1.
Okay, okay. Who else went from what?
3 to 1.
A 3 to 1? Anybody? Yeah.
I'm gonna go at 5 to
From a 7 to a 3.
Okay, so everybody went down at least one number and sometimes more. Why do you suppose you end up with less mental noise after you've done this breathing exercise? What are some ideas? Yeah.
Because your mind was just focusing on like your breathing and like what was happening as you were breathing and not anything else. Then your mind was technically delayed for a bit after. So you don't have as much obsessive thoughts.
Okay, so there are a couple things going on there, right? First of all, you said your mind is focused on breathing, right? So that's one focus. What else is it focused on? Breathing how many times? 5. Okay, that's 2 things. So you're counting, you're breathing. What else is your mind focused on?
The body parts.
The body parts, right? So that gives your mind a lot of juicy stuff to get into, right? So as you said, Devin, sorry. Jevin, not right. Denson, also not right. As Devin said, you can't obsess about anything because your brain is occupied, right? It's thinking about 3 specific things, right? And then the breathing itself. What about the breathing itself? Why does breathing help you calm down your mental noise? What do you think? What's your experience?
Blood pressure typically.
Yes, it does. So one of the experiments they've done in the wings, all the gray areas, they've taken the pulse of a performer in the wings, and then they do the breathing exercise and they take it again, and slower. So it's not just that the mental noise is calming down, but the physical body relaxes. How many of you perform your best when you're like, great dancing? Not so much, right? Tension in the body is not good for ballet. It's not good for most things, right? A little bit is okay, right? A little bit of adrenaline, a little bit of excitement, but kind of like breathing up, hyperventilating into the top of your chest, right? A lot of mental noise. Oh my God, what if I fall? What if I fall? What if I fall? What if she's better than me? What if he's better than me? What if this? What if that? What if he drops me? What if my tutu comes off? Blah, blah. Not not great performances, right? Not great. But calm, mentally clear, that's when you get really good performances, right? That's when people do their best. So, hugely successful tool, very strong tool for both calming down the body and calming down the mind. And because they talk to each other, right? When your breath is slow and steady, it sends a message to your brain that says, no danger here, everything's fine. And the brain goes, oh, good. And when the brain says to the body, just count to 5, count to 5 again, count to 5 again. Like, the body goes, oh, good, okay, great. So they're working in harmony to say everything is fine, okay, don't worry. So if you tend to be a nervous person, if you get very nervous before class or auditions or performances, this can be a really helpful tool for you, right? You can do it in the morning when you wake up, you can do it when you get to the theater, you can do it before you go on stage, you can do it after you get off stage, and it just brings everything down to a level where you want to perform like normal, plus a little bit of adrenaline and excitement, right? That little like energy that kind of you feel when you perform. That's good, but you don't want to be in a state of short breathing, too many thoughts, that kind of nerves, right? Because that's not really very helpful in the end. The other thing about breathing is that, again, in a class or an audition, in the middle of a performance, you can't stop and have this exercise at a good time. But when you get to the front of the class and you finish your combination and you're turning around and walking to the back, if you're heightened anxiety and nerves, you can go, right? One good inhale and exhale. I feel more relaxed just having done that right now. It's just enough. Sometimes that's enough, right? To just, okay. It's like a reset. It's like a reset button. Just sometimes on your phone, you're doing too many things and all of a sudden your phone is like, and that's it. And you're like, all right, calm down, power up. And your phone's like, oh, thank you. I needed that. Like, we're like that, right? We need that sometimes. If there's too much happening, it's almost like you have a freeze in your system. Just take a deep breath, really deep breath, and push it all out, and you'll be amazed at how much more relaxed you feel in your body. So the mind and the breath together, the body and the breath together can be very powerful tools for calming down any mental distractions, any kind of nerves, and just kind of setting you back into neutral. Any questions about that? Okay. These are the tools I have for you today, those 4, plus the other one, the intentional, unintentional. And I hope that you, I hope that they were interesting for you. I hope that you think that they might be helpful. What I've found in my work coaching dancers one-on-one is that the more prepared dancers are for things, the better they dance. The more supported they feel, the more tools they have in their back pocket, even if they don't need to use them all the time, they know, like, oh, if I'm feeling nervous, I'm going to do this. If I'm feeling like really kind of sick about how afraid I am of this piece, I'm going to do that. Even that, just knowing that they have tools, helps them get into, or not get into situations where they feel like they're out of control. It helps them feel like they have a sense of control over things. For everything, from just coming in and doing class, to going out and competing in these big, Barna and YGP and these competitions, right? It gives them a sense that they have some control over how they're going to have that experience. And what I found is that, contrary to kind of that old traditional mindset, which was certainly true when I was training and Karen was training, which is like, it should be high drama all the time, you should totally be freaking out, you should be super upset, and if you don't cry, it's because you don't care enough. That does not work. It does not work, right? It produces a lot of drama, and everybody feels like, oh, this is so dramatic. We must really be working hard because everybody's crying all the time, right? But the results are so good, right? And you don't feel good about it either, because you've been so heightened getting up to it that it can almost feel like a letdown when you finally do the performance, because it's like, oh, I'm just so relieved it's over, right? And I like to think, and my dancers tell me that it's true, and it's certainly true for me, that when you can go into class and have your best class, or get on stage and have a good performance that comes from a place of calm confidence, the performance isn't a relief, it's a joy, it's wonderful, it's like, it's a release of all the stuff you've worked for in a good way, right? Not just like, thank God that's over, get me out of here, right? Like I don't want to do that again. There's no longevity there, someone mentioned longevity. There's no longevity, right? You want to be able to stay in love with your art form and in love with the process of training. And that can only happen if you like coming in every day and doing the work. And you want to be in a calm, empowered, confident place in your head in order to keep coming back and loving it. So I hope that this gave you some ideas of things. I hope for the parents it gave you some ideas for things to share with them and remind them, like, remember that thing? Maybe we should try that. Just to and they're going to remind you in the future of this, take that as a good thing, right? Because anybody who's reminding you of things like this wants you to succeed and wants you to do well. So do we have any questions about any of the things I talked about, or just anything in general? Because, well, we don't have any more time, but if you have another minute or so, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Can I get a couple takeaways? What are you going to walk away with as, like, maybe the most kind of, for you, interesting, or a thing that you really want to try? A couple of takeaways just before we go. Yeah.
When you have a negative thought or about doing something, try to stop it and then redirect it so that you can have a better outcome with your dancing or another part of it.
Okay. You like this one? Thought something. Okay.
Any other takeaways?
Yeah.
Breathe more.
That's a general good one for dancers. Breathe more. How many of you hold your breath when you dance? I did that all the time. I remember the day someone said to me, you know why you can't do people ever very well?